Now, acid attacks against women are far too common in Pakistan. As a warning, the images that we're about to show you are graphic. At least 160 acid attacks were recorded in 2014 alone. Human rights organizations say that the actual number is much higher, and many victims are afraid to report the abuse. Attackers target women's heads and faces to hurt them, to disfigure them, or to even blind them completely. And for more than 10 years, Musarrat Misbah, a beautician in Lahore, has transformed her beauty salon into a refuge for acid attack victims. In a fascinating piece, BBC Pakistan correspondent Shaima Khalil shares these women's stories, and she joins us now. Shaima, thanks for being with us. So tell us.
Happy to be here, Alana.
Tell us how common these kinds of attacks in Pakistan are, and why they happen, what the so-called crimes are of the victims.
Well, I think to get any solid number on the regularity of how often they happen is really difficult, because even though we have this figure, 160 this year alone, the activists that I spoke to and the charities say that the real number is likely to be much higher. And the reason for that is that most of these cases go unreported. And they go unreported because victims are just too scared to go to the police to report these attacks, because they're scared that they're going to be attacked again. And also the problem as well is that when some of these cases go to court and do make it to police, the perpetrators rarely face justice. These cases take forever in the courts. They take a very, very long time. And some of the families are actually pressured into settling outside court. So it actually is a crime where the victims feel very, very unsupported, not just by the legal system, but also by society, because once a girl or a woman has had acid thrown on her face, it's just a condemnation. It's killing her without killing her, because she can no longer function properly in the society because of the stigma and because of the rejection by the majority of the society. And that's why the salon that you spoke about is so remarkable, because not only does it give victims medical help and medical treatment in operations, it also allows them a second chance in life. They train them either to be beauticians or other vocational training, and allows them just a second chance to start a job and start a new life.
Well, yeah, tell us more about Musarrat Misbah's salon. When was it that it really became a refuge for acid attack victims, and a known one?
So it happened 10 years ago, she told me. She said that one night, as she was walking out of her salon, this woman came with her face covered. And she said when she took the veil off her face, Musarrat had to sit down. She was so shocked at the sight of this woman. She basically told me this was a woman with no face. Her eyes were gone, her lips and her nose were just melted into a lump. And this woman said, "I've heard about you, that you are a beautician and you're very experienced, and could you please make my face look better?" And of course, Musarrat said, "Look, no amount of makeup can fix what has happened to you." And she started calling doctors for help. And this is when it happened. And she said in 10 years, she's helped more than 500 acid attack and kerosene oil burn victims. So it's a really, when you think about it in 10 years, it's not a big number, but one acid attack is actually one acid attack too many, because it's just a horrendous attack on any person, really, because it almost just stops your life being normal. And this is, again, why she was determined to take in these women and to allow them a second chance of life, a second chance to be functional again.
And so, I mean, how much can she do? As you mentioned, she said she's not a doctor. There's only so much that an acid attack can try to repair on someone's face.
And that's really the problem. She tries to do as much as she can. There are charities here as well for acid attack survivors, and they try to do as much as they can in accessing medical help for these patients. But there are many, many problems. The first problem is actually getting access to these women and encouraging them to come up and report these attacks. But the other thing is that most hospitals here don't have the sufficient facilities to help these victims and to operate on them properly. So they have to wait for months before they get proper operations. And also, it's not just one or two operations. For example, Bushra Shafi, the beautician that I spoke to in the salon, had 150 operations on her face to make it look semi-normal again. So this is really the challenge, is getting enough medical facilities and getting those women to come forward. But also, I'll go back to the legal issue, which is that if we have enough convictions here, if perpetrators know that they will face justice, these attacks will be much less than they are now.
Now, in your piece, you say that there's a lawyer, Saad Rasool, who's currently working to create a new law to criminalize these acid attacks. So at this point, does that mean that they're legal? The perpetrators face no punishment?
Well, it's interesting because up until 2011, acid attacks weren't even a crime here. And then there was an amendment in the law criminalizing acid attacks. But again, the amendment of the law and the implementation of the law here are two very, very different things. So the law does exist, but actually implementing the law and convicting someone hasn't happened on a regular basis. And Saad Rasool, the lawyer that I was speaking to, was actually trying to get these cases into terrorism courts, because in terrorism courts, as he calls it, it's social terrorism. You are terrorizing someone when you pour acid on their face. And normally these courts are much faster and much more efficient. So that's what he's been trying to do with one of the cases. And we still have to see whether or not it will go through.
Now, you spoke to several of the victims. Let's take a listen to what they told you.
Father-in-law.
My husband, brother-in-law and father-in-law poured acid on me. My mother-in-law held my neck, and my two children were there. My face was so swollen, it was like a big slab of meat.
Now, another victim told you that she was attacked while she was walking in the streets 10 days before her wedding.
I was just about to enter my home. I heard some noise from the back and felt some movement. I turned back and there were two people on the bike. The one who was sitting at the back, he just rushed towards me and showered me with acid.
Now, she also told you that she hasn't been able to look at her face in the mirror since. How devastated are these women? You know, how long does it take for them to be able to try to feel like they have their lives back, and especially when it's members of their family, like that first victim that we heard from, who are the ones responsible?
I mean, it's very difficult to say, really, Ramona. I mean, the Bushra, the one who was attacked by her in-laws, it took her years. I think she was attacked 15 years ago, and just now she's saying that she's able to move on and start a new life. And Huma, the one who was attacked 10 days before her wedding, like you said, she's still unable to look at herself in the mirror. She said, my family has covered all the mirrors in my house. I just do not have the strength to look at myself in the mirror. And it's really sad because when we were in her house, she showed me pictures of herself just a few days before the attack, and a picture of her engagement party as well. You know, she's a beautiful woman with olive skin, beautiful smile, long dark hair, and none of that is visible at the moment. And, you know, she still hasn't even gone through enough surgeries for her face to be an inkling back to normal. So she still has a very long way to go. And of course, the stress of that goes much, much deeper with these victims. It goes on for years, of course.
Of course. And also, you know, when something like that happens, does the wedding go on, or is she now someone who is undesirable?
Well, you know, she, despite anything, and I know this is going to sound strange, but she's actually one of the lucky ones, because she said that she has a big, big support system, and despite the horrific experience that she's gone through, her fiance is very, very supportive. Her family is very supportive. She's a university professor, and she says her students are quite supportive. And really, this is what I wanted to bring out when I was doing this story and I was speaking to these people. I mean, this is a part of a bigger season that we have on the BBC called 100 Women, and it's looking at women's lives in different areas, in the workplace, on the front line, in the classroom, at home. And part of it is about endurance, and part of it is about enduring these hardships and moving on. And these two women, even though they were, subjected to the most horrific violence, they were both determined to move on. And it was interesting because before I left the salon, Bushra, the beautician, said, Shaima, to survive in this life, you have to fight. You have to keep on fighting, and that's what I'm doing now.
All right, Shaima, thank you so much for joining us today.